as Val said. So today, April 6th, 2025, weather, Sunday, gloomy, Canada, Vancouver. I watched Val, released by Val Kilmer in 2021. It was a year after I finished the Smallville reunion movie in first draft, the two-part movie. And I just stunned by the history of the information he shared in there and how much of my life crosses over in his story. And I just thought it's necessary to prove this and talk about it right away so that there's no question about truth, which I tend to like to tell a lot of and well. So I just wanted to do this while the weather and the day and everything was all the same around, I guess, the gloom or the sadness or the heartbreak, as Mark Twain says, about it all. So here, I have already recorded the poem, Vortex of Energy. And here in the corner, the original date is April 3rd, 2025, which was before I watched Val. Now, in the movie, you can hear him talk about specific dates, and April 3rd, 1993 was one of them. And in this poem itself, I actually wrote the year itself, also 1993. I don't know which page it's on in here because it's really long. I tend to have trouble writing short stuff. I'll do it here. And then I transferred it over into my book. This is one I never finished, but I started in 2016. So that would have been around the time that he had been diagnosed and was being treated with his throat cancer. I'm working on my 8 Mile 2 books where I have scanned copies of this original handwritten one and then the typed pages that will look like my trilogy. Now, here, I finally put it in on the same day. No, it wasn't the same day. It was a few days later when I was with my support client. But when I watched the movie, and I was just stunned by the fact that I put 1993 in the poem, not just April 3rd. So this poem is literally for him, dedicated to him and about our paths never crossing, because I'm going to go back to looking at me because of one big detail. In my life growing up here in Canada, there's not been a lot of support. In my life, personally, it was hardship. There wasn't a lot of money. There wasn't a lot of family, or at least closeness. I wasn't allowed camera. Never in my life during the Star Wars era of filmmaking, during the Richie Cunningham era of TV shows, did I ever have a reel-to-reel camera experience hands-on. I had a reel-to-reel. We went to Disney and we recorded and watched that. I didn't touch camera. I grew up my whole life without ever having any of those VCR, VHS types cameras. I had the little cameras later in life and then my phones. I started recording and keeping track of stuff when I got old enough to a point where I was able to protect myself and the stuff I wanted to keep, because quite often throughout the years, other people would make executive decisions and just sort of override me and get rid of what's mine. My first novel I wrote at 13 had been chucked away in the garbage. The papers were sprawled across my desk in my bedroom because I had gone to school late for a couple of weeks while I was writing it and watching Arsenio Hall, staying up late because I had a vision, a dream as a young girl to be the youngest guest on his TV show for having written a book that would have been similar to like an Oliver Twist style, but written by a girl from a girl's perspective of being, a runaway. And by having lost that movie script in trying to get my mom, who was a single parent on welfare, on and off of working in Winnipeg, out of poverty, she did send me to the streets. And that is what happened. I ran away. I ran to other people's places, homes, and got comfort from friends and strangers. I began to self-harm and delve deeper into drugs and life on the streets and pull further away from religion and God. Not that I stopped having faith in him, but just that I had to figure out how to raise myself through him on my own. So the story that Val Kilmer told in Val and all of the years in it that he mentions literally coincides with very significant details and points in times of my life growing up here in Canada and places in time where I couldn't get to where I should have been and couldn't do what I should have been doing, like stage, which was always my passion and dream. I did go to acting school in Brandon, Manitoba. My grandmother paid for that. She bought me a leather jacket. She would go out in public with me when I had blue hair and piercings and dressed punk because we are British. She loved me. She was wonderful. She taught me how to cook. I ate her food and learned to become her. But there was no lottery for her to be able to solve everybody's problems with. And she bought 649 until she passed away. And I didn't have a dad really in the picture. There was nothing, no father figure, because God was it, right? That's what he wants and that's what he got. So I really am just shocked because he has kept everything in storage all those years. Val's like, oh, I wanted to make all of these movies. I wanted to do this stuff with all the stuff he saved. And I didn't have that luxury of growing up with all that film. And he's got it. And I'm just realizing that there is a coinciding second story or film that can be produced with what he's already got in the tank around my coinciding writing of my life. And when I did start doing little audio clips and recording tapes and doing CDs, like I'm going to literally take you with me. I have an apartment in Gatineau, Quebec that has bins. But here on my new dresser, you can see I have, hang on, I'm going to flip it. I have a stack of all personal CDs, DVDs, tape of the materials. What is this one? Say, My Little Book of Bible Stories, tape 1. God Talk, 15 Minutes of Heaven, because I had a dream of wanting to get on the radio and help put people to sleep with spiritual words at night before they go to bed to leave the monsters at bay and help them fall asleep. I put music on tape of the 5 albums I have written, and then I did my own burns when I had everything transferred from tape onto CD. And this is my Superwoman artwork that I did after I bought the Superwoman van and started creating new designs for the characters in my work. And You've Got Mail too. I started writing in Winnipeg in 2012, and I finished it in Toronto in 2013. And to this day, Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan have not read it. Heath Ledger died when I was up north in BC. And I knew a lot about him, and I had always dreamed to work with him in A Knight's Tale 2. And so I have music and CDs where I have made dedicated soundtracks that were for a project about him I wanted to do. And then the collected works of his pictures I had got destroyed on a flash drive when I stuck it in a Mac computer, and the guy wiped it or redid whatever and clicked the wrong thing. So there's one that's dedicated Simply Matilda, which was his daughter. But what I'm saying is I have an apartment in Gatineau that has bins of books and other things because I am an avid reader. And then my mom's got a box of stuff that I had to rescue. This is what one of my demo CDs looks like with me on the cover. I'm not sure if the tape is in there. Oh, look, it's autographed by me. And some of the songs that I burned onto it are in there. And I was just selling these for $5. And the idea was to travel around North America in my Superwoman van and play the songs with the guitar as best as I had learned how, taught myself how, and sell these demo CDs for $5 till I could find a place where I could get support. And my goal had been to go to New Mexico, where Gene Hackman was. Now the border guards wouldn't let me in because they didn't think I had enough money. And I tried to tell them I was staying at a place where everybody lived there for free and volunteered to take care of the place and keep it running. And that I had enough money to get there, and I had a 7-passenger van to produce money with, and I had all of this other material. They ransacked my van and then held me in a holding cell for hours, and then sent me back to Winnipeg. So I never went back to that border in Manitoba, and it took me years before I finally got out through the New York side. From Toronto, which is terrible. I went to a basic income Congress there, and I had enough money for all of my stays overnight, and then something went wrong. I lost access to something on one of the credit cards and ended up sleeping under a tree outside in New York City. And at that point, I had so many finished movies, I shouldn't have been living like that. So now he's got all this vault of information and that work and my work to coincide with it, to like continue on in the story of the journey of my career, chasing after his stuff. Like, I'm realizing he should have stayed in theater on stage, which had been my passion. But I got sent back even from the BC border to show you how unfriendly and how uncooperative and unintelligent the border guards are about how to understand who to let in and when to know it's safe to do so. And so it holds people back and keeps people from meeting. Fast forward to 2016, I had finished the trilogy that I had taken 8 years to write, and he was writing his Citizen Twain one act screenplay or script for theater that took him 10 years to write. So there's a huge connection there in proof where people should have crossed paths and worked together, and trying to understand why. So I'm just really blown away because I didn't spend all my life paying attention to or following his career and all of his movies, because he wasn't like the top, but he also wasn't the bottom. And I was busy going after my own. The difference between going to schools like Juilliard and actual film schools is that they don't get enough time to actually watch films, read enough books, watch enough TV, to actually get film schooling. And Juilliard didn't have enough of the right kinds of programs. And I much prefer and believe in natural writing than somebody trying to dictate or tell you or teach you something that may not actually be right, but they're being paid to be the teacher anyway. And he recorded something in that story about it. And he left it on that and left no comment there so people could decide for themselves about that feeling of being a person saying, hey, I don't know, I've never thought that, never been there, whatever. And what do you think about what he said in answer? Eventually, though, you do feel those feelings, but maybe he hadn't then, and except for when he was performing it behind the character. So in film school, by watching movies, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of movies, like hundreds of thousands of movies, you get really good at writing. You get a creative flow and a great imagination and have lots of material. So here in my Vancouver apartment, I have this bookshelf of material, and a box down there. And I have so much unfinished work still to come, and books that are brand new still. I love to write by pen and fill them an old-fashioned way. C.S. Lewis did the same thing. He never touched a typewriter in his life. He wrote everything by hand, and he had other people organize and type it up. And I guess I've learned to use computers to the point where I have 4 laptops full, but I've never been able to build a base or have a studio or an office where I could have a desktop. And so that's what I'm hoping to do with the Downtown Eastside Small Arts Grant that I just got for the 3rd year. So anyways, the long of the short of it is I have to get a camera now. and start filming and recording and taking over from there in the journey, in the story, crossing over. I need to reach Ben Affleck because my youngest daughter was born to her father, whose name was, and is, sorry, his name is Bruce Wayne, Bruce David Wayne Johnson. So essentially, she is Batman's daughter and has been for 15 years, and there's been no movie made about Batman's only child and never getting to meet her. And that is in full connection of Val Kilmer playing Batman and his time passing and choosing to go on to do The Saint, an English thing because he loved London, and I'm British, so I love that tie-in there. Now I'm going to go and study his work, missing pieces of things I should catch up on versus the things I've seen, obviously, and to study the understanding of why and realizing the actor he was trying to be would rather have been and wanted to do more of. And I would have liked to see him do by staying in New York and doing more theater, more Broadway. It would have been more rewarding, I think. But I want to read that Citizen Twain. Excited to do that, but I'm going to use the camera now, a handheld one. I was looking through Facebook for the longest time trying to find the right first camera. I want to go from that size and then work my up to one on the shoulder and see what I can do. One of my problems here in Canada was the National Film Board of Canada and being able to get the full $1 million funding because you have to have finished work for them to give it to you. You can't be a beginner and just apply for that much money. You have to have somebody overseeing your work, and I have found nobody in this place, no one in Canada willing to help oversee my work or sign off on it and give like a resume or a DVD of some of their work to get me approved for the funding without wanting to get paid a bunch of money. And that's not okay, because you need to get the money first before you get paid. You need to do work to earn the money, right? And it doesn't make sense to not be kind to somebody and help them build their career and bless them in advance before the reward, right? So why would you want to be around people that only think of themselves? So this is where I got stuck, and this is why we didn't get to do more. Since I was a little girl, I'm going to close here. 5 years old, when my mom took me to the Kinsman Center for the deaf and handicapped people in Winnipeg, I always wanted to learn American Sign Language, ASL. And I have never had a problem hearing Val Kilmer. I have never had an issue with understanding his communication with me, in spite of us never meeting. And it's there in the cards, in the history of the fact that he got to record everything, one of the first people to have camera, while I had been starved of everything, oppressed of everything, and denied everything, and couldn't have anything. So the stories coincide. But at 5 years of age, I had desired to play sign language, learn sign language, and now I have to go and learn sign language because I understand that when he got sick, that in order for him to continue acting, in order for him to be able to continue to produce and use more of his material in storage and so on, was to have somebody to interact with him using hands instead of sounds from the mouth, no words, no talking, and less is more. Communicating through signs, either as an interpreter or him learning and doing together. And it would have been phenomenal, fantastic to do that, because then you would open up to an entirely new additional audience of people, and that would have been fantastic. And ultimately, I knew that that's what he desired. So in honor of him, I'm now going to challenge myself to learn more of it. I always have app on my phone. I'm going to finish it so I can try to be in a King Kong Godzilla movie where I'm signing with the girl that played the role, talking to King Kong, and try to match him, you know, point to point on the level of work, of seriousness of my films. And it's such tragedy that Gene Hackman passes away on the floor, to leave everything to his wife, and then she dies first. And I know that it's my money. I just can't prove it because people haven't read the trilogies, and he's not here to say it's mine. And that with Val going, well, she's not here, so I can't give her anything. Not that he had much, but he could have left me the art studio. I would have been good with that, because my vision has always been the dream I had is what he was building, where my poetry was put to art on display in studio with different artists who are able to scale the poetry into the work I cannot do with my hands crippled because I had never been given the time to be taught or learn, even though one of my uncles was a painter, and music runs in my bloodline. My dad was a musician, and I didn't have access or time to learn to fully play the instruments. So that would have been a phenomenal way of doing things, and still the dream that I want. And I have been trying since I came back to Vancouver these last 3 years. So now there's a fire lit and a purpose. I wanted to share all that and give my testimony about truth that cannot be denied. And now I have to find the stuff to coincide with the years that he's shared. I have a friend that had a baby at 17 whose daughter was named Mercedes, just like his daughter, and it was the same time. Now, I wasn't interested in being a teenage mom, and by the time I had my first child in 1996, I was divorced. By 2003, I was 28, and he was just getting married. And it's been 22 years, and I've never remarried. Now, obviously, I've had another kid. She's 15, and I've had a very dark life on the street, so I'm not innocent. I'm not a saint. There's no purity in that sense on the outside, but there's still a soul of a good person inside that you can't take away from the earliest memories I have as the little girl that God has always loved. So I'm going to try and do what he's wanting with all that stuff he still has that somebody can still work with, and try to connect the dots and cross over a second story to try to rescue my history using the footage that he's got, which is an interesting way to do it, but I think it will work. I had a storage unit. My mom had put stuff by mistake. She put it during that storage war era into storage places that you can move around, and she started not being able to pay the bills and didn't tell me soon enough. So I lost $100,000 worth of comic products because we had stores, and I stopped being able to go to Comic Cons with that stuff and make some money and go on tours to share my work and talk about myself. And in that time where everything was put in pods, I lost all of the family albums, my childhood stuff, most of it, and the stuff of my grandmother and my grandfather that I needed for the documentary that I wanted to produce, that I wanted the money from the National Film Board of Canada to do. So everything has been stalemate. I even tried contacting Robert Redford to try to get him to help because he has his Sundance thing, and he's like, oh, I'm too busy. So it's just amazing how all that works. And then Tom Welling meeting me in person, and then all of my accounts being blocked, and then refusing to see my YouTube channel being there, or the actual website itself being there, or the Facebook being there, and watching any of the information, and admitting about the work, and me knowing me, and that I am the writer of these movies that I say I am, and that I've shared enough material for people to know it, is just beyond me. I'm baffled by it. Because if I had reached Gene Hackman, if I'd reached New Mexico, which is where my heart wanted to be, everything would have worked out fine for all of us, because that's where he was, Val Kilmer and Gene Hackman. And everything with my work, the trilogy being edited and typecast and proofread by Gene would have been done. Now I have to figure out what to do about all the first draft material that I didn't finish because I had plans, specific people I wanted to sit down and work with and have their handwritten corrections and things on the pages so I could cherish and immortalize that, and put it in archives and memorabilia somewhere in a museum, and keep that in the same 100 years that we shared. And so now, unfortunately, I'm not going to get that because people have chosen to be more into themselves than to stop to take the time to think about others and care more about others. But it's hard to do that if you're not actually caring about yourself or actually loving those around you. And it's all just a fake facade because you've been an actor for so long that you've forgotten who you are or how to be real. It also doesn't help if you don't read the Bible or pray or pay attention to God, or if you're just pretending you can live without knowing that God is real and not needing him. that also doesn't help. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. Stay in touch with what's going on, because this is now starting to get interesting. I just couldn't believe that I wrote that poem, Vortex of Energy, on April 3rd, after God had said the words to me. I could actually hear the words in my head. I want you to go back to writing, because I had hit a stalemate and stopped writing. And then I wrote two things, one at a fast testimony at church, and then that after hearing about his passing away. And I was at home for days, grounded, even though it was sunny outside, blue sky. I just couldn't bring myself to go anywhere because those words had to come out. So now I know there's going to be much more to come still. And I'm kind of scared because I don't know how much more that means there's going to be. So I can't waste the time I have, because I'm 50 and you just never know how many days left you got, how many minutes, hours to create memories and leave stuff for others. So maybe I'll make it a challenge to perform male characters. Maybe I'll make it a challenge to record the works of male writers, because maybe it's needed. I always had that moment in my life where I was around Brad Pitt again, where I'm like doing the Heath Ledger thing. Oh, I'm not dead. I've had a sex change. And have Brad go, oh, it's like having Heath back. So maybe I can do some justice for Val too. So let's, I guess, just making history. So this is it, me filming my life using phone cameras, and working on getting my All-Stars pass for the second rounds to get to California to work towards winning some awards of the $1 million worth of stuff there is to win over there in June, because it's really time that I finally get there, and see if that will be enough to take my person and make it into characters that I can put myself into and find parts of myself in. So peace out, guys. This is me signing off from Now TV Canada here in Vancouver on a rainy Sunday after I served people for my Easter service of food donations for a day, because they needed hot food in this kind of weather. Looking forward to seeing sunny California soon. Bye for now. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, follow, go to futureproductions.online. Order my material. Go to my vocal page, read it, support it, tip. Bye.